How are you, Frank? Are you okay now?
Yes, I'm fine. Yes, yes.
Okay, nice, nice.
Better tonight. Yes, wasn't up to it last night at all.
Okay, that's nice.
The high temperature.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So that's nice. That's good now.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, let's chant the prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatharini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome you all once again. So today we will continue our chapter 6. So we'll start chapter 6 today. So on this Monday we have completed chapter 5, where Krishna teaches us about a peace formula, and by knowing that, by following those, we can actually be peace in this material world, isn't it? Bhoktaram yagata basam sarvalokam maheshwaram. Understanding that Krishna is the all proprietor, Krishna is the all, even all well wisher for everyone. He is the benefiter of all the sacrifices. We all can be peace in this world, right? So chapter 6 is called Dhyana Yoga, and chapter 6 has 47 verses, and in these 47 verses are again divided into 5 sections. So if you remember, in chapter 5, before ending chapter, the 2 verses 5:28 and 27:28, there Krishna just gave a small brief about Dhyana Yoga or Astanga Yoga. And in that chapter number 6, Krishna is going to elaborate this to Arjuna. Right. However, anyway, Krishna and Arjuna is going to say again at the end that, okay, it's again difficult for me to give some easy formula, and Krishna is going to give the easiest one, the Bhakti Yoga. And then Bhakti Yoga, Krishna explains that Bhakti Yoga in next 6 chapters from 7 to 7 till 12. Right. So this chapter 6 has 47 verses. And again, these are divided into 5 sections, where first it says about the difference between the two levels of Astanga yogis, the neophyte or new, and the Aruksha and Arudha, who are advanced, and the new beginner Astanga yogis. Even Krishna glorifies Niskam Karma Yoga in the start of the chapter. And then Krishna speaks about the stages of Astanga Yoga. There's Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Asana, Dharana till Samadhi. So these steps being described. And then Krishna explains about the necessity of controlling the mind in the 3rd section. And the 4th section, Arjuna asks a question. So it looks very difficult. And what happens if someone could not complete it? And then Krishna explains about this destination of unsuccessful yogis. And in the last, Krishna says that Bhakti Yoga is actually all of everything, and the destination or easiest one is Bhakti Yoga. That's 47th verse of this chapter, right? So let's try to see again one by one, verses we'll go. Okay, so before that, let's see in chapter 5, even in 3, 4, and 5, Krishna spoke more about, even chapter 3, Krishna spoke about Karma Yoga, and then chapter 4, Krishna gave transcendental knowledge or Dibya Gyan, and chapter 5 again summarizes about Karma Yoga, but again in action in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says, so when we act in Krishna consciousness, actually we open the path for liberation. And where Krishna talks more about performing our own duty, because Arjuna wanted to go away from the war, and he thought, okay, let me go away, I don't need the kingdom, and what's the use of killing my own kinsmen? Then Krishna guided him, yes, no, you will have to fight, you have to do your duty, you can't go away from here, isn't it? And that's how Krishna explained that, yes, and we discussed more about working or doing activities with proper knowledge, and then working for Krishna as sacrifice to Krishna, and working with detachment or with no attachment. We actually we can remain peaceful, we can remain equipoised, we can actually open the path for higher realization or self-realization, or even towards liberation. That's a whole sum of kind of karma yoga's things, and it describes in 3, 4, and 5 with transcendental knowledge, the knowledge of who am I, how these things are working, how the three modes are working in a little bit. And Krishna says about that you are not the actual doer. There are three doers, you, the soul, the super soul, the sanctioner, and this mental nature who actually facilitates these things. So you are not the whole soul one. Everyone is there behind it. So that we need to understand. These are the proper knowledge of that, right? So let me share chapter 6 from where we continue. Hope you can see my screen well.
Yes, Prabhuji.
I've zoomed a bit. It's better.
That's better. Can you make the font slightly bigger for me, Prabhuji?
Yes, let me do it. Is that okay now?
That's better. That's better now. Yes.
Okay.
I don't need to wear glasses now.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So Krishna is, let's see what Krishna is going to say here. So here Krishna is going to elaborate more on this dhyana or Astanga Yoga. And however, this dhyana yoga or Astanga Yoga is actually becomes very difficult for common people to perform, isn't it? So, and it's been described earlier that as Arjuna wanted to go away to the forest without fighting the war, Krishna says, no, we have to work for our purification. And without purification, if we perform Astanga Yoga, it becomes more difficult as well. And it's not recommended to. So because when we don't purify our senses and we have to act on, Krishna says these are kind of, mithyachara, who are pretender. From the outward world, they may say, okay, I've taken sannyasa or I am renounced everything. But inside the heart, there will be so much desires to enjoy sense gratification, right? So Krishna says it's not advisable. So we need to work, we need to perform our karma yoga, we need to perform our duties with detachment so that we can become purified. And when we can become purified, we can actually take the next steps towards Astanga Yoga. And at the end, we will see that Arjuna says, oh Krishna, the process you are describing about Astanga Yoga looks to be very difficult. So what to do? And then Krishna says at the end that the Bhakti Yoga is the best. Krishna says, yogi nama pi sarvesam mad gatinantar atmanam shraddhavan bhajate yoma swami yuktatma matah. Krishna says, this is the topmost one who worship me with devotion, with love and devotion, right? So yogi nama pi sarvesam, this is the conclusion of chapter 6. From all the yogis, karma yogis, dhyana yogi, jnana yogi, ashtanga yogis, from all the yogis, bhakti yogis, all ones, yogi nama pi sarvesam mad gatinantar atmanan shraddhavan with full faith, who worship me, is the topmost one. Basically, that's Bhakti Yoga, right? So let's see. In first two verses, Krishna glorifies again, and he asks Arjuna to perform Karma Yoga or Niskam Karma Yoga precisely. Right? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashita Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karoti Yaha Sa Sannyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Nirgnair Cha Kriya. Krishna says Anashrita means without taking shelter. Prabhupada says without taking shelter, and karma phalam. So who is basically who do not take shelter on karma phala, or who give up this attachment to the results of the work. And karyam karma karoti. So one who works in that way by giving up the detachment, or who detached, or his no attachment toward the desire or to enjoy the results. In that way, when we work, what happens? We do two things. It says sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. So that person is actually a yogi. At the same time, he is sannyasi. So sannyasi doesn't only mean that we need to keep up everything and take a orange robe and do like that. So sannyasi is basically, sannyasi is more of an attitude, more often our spirit of activities, spirit of action, or more about consciousness rather than taking an order. We have 4 orders. There are brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. That's the 4th order. So that's one there. But being in this grahastha, or in this life as well, when we work with detachment, we can be on the same platform. And otherwise, this is na niragrir na shakriya. So let's see. Translation, it says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obliged is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So this last one, who lights no fire and performs no duty, is basically sannyasis. Sannyasis, they don't cook for their own self. Sannyasis, they just go on big arm, and if someone gives, they live on that. So this how even they don't perform any activities. So Krishna is actually emphasizing more to Arjuna to work, but how? Be unattached to the results, right? So you have to perform your duty, you work your duty, you give your full strength to perform your prescribed duty in the mode of unattached to the fruits of his work. And hence he is the person who is actually in the renounced order of life. Though looks to be a Kshatriya as a Arjuna, but still, if he follows in this way, he is renounced from all activities. Because we see discussed earlier that a karma. So when we perform our activities by offering Krishna everything without detachment, right? Sorry, with detachment and without attachment, then actually we are not performing the same things, and we are not binding ourselves in the bondage of the results of the activities. So Prabhupada says here that in this chapter, Lord explains the process of Eightfold Yoga system, which means to control the mind and the senses. However, this is very difficult for people in general to perform, especially in this Kali Yoga. So gradually we'll see is how this yoga process happens. We need to control the minds very, very rigidly, and control the senses, and then meditate on the Lord within our own self as Paramatma, and then go on to Samadhi process. That becomes very, very difficult in this age of Kali, this Kali Yoga. However, Lord Krishna is emphasizing the process of Karma Yoga, or acting in Krishna consciousness, is better. And if you see, it becomes practical as well. We all can live in this world. We can be in our family. We can be on our job. At the same time, we can offer the results to Lord, right? And so Prabhupada mentions one more thing. I'm going over there. See here, Prabhupada again emphasizes about the Krishna conscious person. He says a Krishna conscious person has no desire for self-satisfaction. His creation of success is the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus he is the perfect sannyasi or a perfect yogi. And Lord Chaitanya, the highest perfectional symbol of renunciation, prays in this way: na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagada isha kamaye mama janmani janmeshware bhavatad bhaktir ahitukaitai. So what shall we desire and what shall we not desire is being described in this verse. He says, "O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. What I want only is the causeless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth after birth." So that is the actually prayer of a devotee, or that's the mood of a devotee, that I do not want anything rather than accept your devotional service. Right? This is basically, Prabhupada is actually going more higher and teaching us that concretely Krishna is going to come back in the Bhakti Yoga, and by doing Bhakti Yoga, that is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us to do Bhakti Yoga and pray to Krishna to get Bhakti Yoga, right? To devotion to his lotus feet. So that's how in this verse Krishna says that when we are unattached to our results of the activity, though we are working, but still we are sannyasi and yogi. both. So sannyasi and yogi, or the karma yogi or sannyasi, they are actually same in one context, because the sannyasi, as said, sannyasi is not the order, rather it is spirit of our activity, or it's spirit of working in the spirit of renunciation is actually more applicable and called as sannyasi as well. So as said, it's attitude of doing our activity or more about our consciousness, right? And then Krishna says in chapter next text 2, he says, Yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava nahe asanyasto sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless renounces the desire for sense gratification. So what yoga means? So yoga means is what? Linking oneself to the Supreme, or connecting oneself to the Supreme. So when we say karma, it means we are doing our dealing with our daily activities. And when we say karma yoga, it means with our activities we are actually connecting ourselves to Krishna. That becomes karma yoga. So in the similar way, this jnana means getting knowledge, but when we say jnana yoga, it means through knowledge we are connecting to Krishna. When we say Astanga Yoga, so Astanga is basically 8 process of this yoga, and through that we connect ourselves with Supreme Lord. And Bhakti Yoga is through bhakti we connect with Krishna, with Supreme Lord. So that's how the yoga term is, linking ourselves with the Supreme. And this verse Krishna says that if someone, a person cannot become a yogi unless renounces the desire for sense gratification. If you see, these things being said by Krishna again and again, isn't it? To renounce or to give up the sense gratification or the desire for sense gratification, right? And here he's saying that without doing this, it's not possible to become a yogi. So when a Astanga yogi goes for in the Himalayas or in the forest for meditation to meditate on Lord, at that time he must have given up all the desire for sense gratification. Otherwise, it's not possible for someone to become a yogi over there, right? So if you remember earlier, we have discussed this. And again, Krishna is saying that do not, other way around is, do not give up the things prematurely. So if we have the desire for sense gratification and just we want to give it up, it's actually we are in a premature state, and it's going to create havoc in our own life, in the society as well, right? So better perform Niskam karma yoga, get purified, and take the next step. So Prabhupada says the real sannyasi yoga or bhakti means that one should know his constitutional positions as a living entity and act accordingly. So when we know our real position, what is that? That we are Krishna Das, Jivara Sarupa hai, Nitya Krishna Das. And we understand that the living entity has no separate independent identity. So we are all, we cannot be, we are actually all parts and parts of Lord. So we are not separated from Lord, right? And the other one, Krishna says, what Prabhupada says, that he is the marginal energy of the Supreme. So living entity are marginal energy of the Supreme, right? And somehow or other we are even trapped in this material world, right? So Prabhupada again explains about the process, that saying that the process for knowledge or of restraining the senses as prescribed in the jnana or yoga process is automatically served in Krishna consciousness. So when we practice Krishna consciousness, we get both. We get knowledge about what? Knowledge about who I am, knowledge about who God is, knowledge about what relationship I have with God. And then automatically we also perform yoga because we connect ourselves with Krishna. We understand that yes, we are eternal parts and parcel of Krishna, and we are his eternal servant. So we are supposed to serve him, right? So that's how the connection happens when we perform things in Krishna consciousness. And again, Prabhupada nicely says that if one is unable to give up the activities of his selfish nature, then jnana and yoga are of no avail. Right. So ultimately, the conclusion is that Krishna is trying to say that without purification, we should not give up things prematurely. So perform Niskam Karma Yoga. Try hard to offer your results to Lord Krishna. As we discussed earlier many times, that it's very easy, isn't it? So we know we to maintain our body, we have to eat. And when we offer our food to Krishna and take it, we are actually doing this in as bhakti yoga. So we are offering our food to Krishna, and that offered food becomes prasadam, and that prasadam has no bondage, and we can have it. In the same time, we can get nourished. So we can have our home at the same place. We can have a small altar. We can have a picture of Lord. Basically, we can have Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and we can worship them. Or we can have Laddu Gopal, we can have Lord Nrsimhadev, we can have Lord Jagannath, we can have Puranitana Shashi, and worship them very nicely. And that home still become a place of worship. Right. Hence, Prabhupada conclusively says that in this verse that all purposes are perfectly served by practice of Krishna consciousness. Isn't it? So, see, Prabhupada is actually focusing main on this point of Krishna consciousness, because ultimately Krishna is going to give us the information about Bhakti Yoga at later stage. And Prabhupada is just trying to bang in earlier that yes, ultimately we need to practice Krishna consciousness as well. Right. So that's how the two verses says about. And then in third verses, in third and fourth, Krishna explains about two levels of sannyasa. So in the first and second verse, this being described that yoga and sannyasa are somehow the same. However, the mode is different. When we are in karma yoga, we can be in the mode of detachment, and actually we are performing sannyasa yoga, or right, perfect yoga. And then in these two verses, 3 and 4, Krishna is going to explain about the two levels of Astanga Yoga. The one is beginning level, and one is advanced level. So what happens in beginning level and what happens in advanced level, right? So third verse. Arurukshor munir yogam karma karanam uchyate yoga rudhasya tasyaiva samah karanam uchyate. So for one who is neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all mental activities is said to be the means. So even in the Eightfold Yoga system, which comes, yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, that even in that stages, some 4 or 5 initial stages are called as is to be neophyte stage or beginning stage, and the last 3, dhyana, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, this comes in the advanced stage. So even if someone in the initial stage, like in yama, niyama, asana, in this stage, then also we need to perform our duty. Krishna says that who is neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. So we should try to perform our duty to purify ourselves more, right? And once we are on the stage of advanced level, so this is talking about advanced, who is completely elevated, who has crossed these 5 things, who has controlled his mind very well, who has controlled his senses very well, then he can give up all these mental activities. At the time he actually give up mental activities and is completely in trance, meditating on the Lord's lotus feet, right? So Prabhupada again says that the process of linking oneself with Supreme is called yoga, as we discussed earlier. So the yoga means what? The process by which we can link ourselves with the Supreme. So it may be compared to a ladder for attaining the topmost spiritual realizations, and this ladder begins from the lowest mental condition of the living entity and rises up to the perfect self-realization in the pure spiritual life. So the yoga ladder goes like, we can say someone is, have no faith in Lord, right? In Nastik, and the higher than that is becomes, Astik. He has some material desire, but still he accepts God, he worships God with some mental motivative, and then basically comes the karmis. So karmis have the same thing, they desire but they worship. In karma there are again different categories. So one is Niskam karma yoga, and the sakam karma yoga goes over there, and from there it's higher is jnana yoga, and higher than that comes is Astanga Yoga or dhyana yoga, and higher than comes is bhakti yoga. So these are the yoga ladders gradually. So however, he says according to the various elevations, different parts of the ladder are known by different names, but all in all the complete ladder is called yoga. So this is a yoga ladder. You gradually go from one place to another, like from jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and bhakti yoga. And the beginning of the ladder is yoga rurukshu stage or initial stage, and the highest rung is called yoga rudha or the advanced stage, right? So has been said that I think it's there as well, yeah. So the 5 stages of earlier, we will discuss it going forward as well. So one stage called as yama, and yama I think Prabhupada is mentioning in this next verse. Okay, no worries. So these 5 stages where it says yama means you have don't, or do's and don't for and something. So it's just a yama is don't and yama is a do's. So you need to follow some rules and regulations, some provision and some prescriptions kind of things, right? Then asana is your bodily posture, and then comes the pranayam, where the breathing exercises, they control their breathing, they take the breathing inward and hold it for a long time. In the similar, this breathing process happens. And then pratyahara is basically controlling the senses from the sense object. So these 5 stages are called as the beginning stages or yoga rurukshu stage. So rurukshu means a beginning stage, and beginning stage for yoga is called yoga rurukshu. And arudha means advanced stage, and as is connected to yoga, so it's called a yoga rudha, means advanced stage in yoga, right? So, and the rest 3 stages, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, they are, dharana is basically fixing mind on the Lord's form. They meditate within their the Paramatma, to meditate on the Lord. And then dhyana is again intensified meditation. So they meditate completely in absorbed state, and the samadhi is completely absorbed in the Lord's form. All right. So this Krishna is saying in this third verse about the 2 category. One is arurukshu and one is rudhasya, or initial stage and the advanced stage, right? Yeah, again, nicely Prabhupada mentions about Krishna consciousness. He says Krishna conscious person, however, is situated from the beginning on the platform of meditation because he always thinks of Krishna. So the yoga, the practices, when they come to the stage of dharana and dhyana, there they start meditating on Krishna's form and they completely meditate on that. However, in Krishna consciousness, from beginning only, the devotee starts meditating on Krishna. Yeah, even in this stage, when the stages go higher in the after Anartha Nivrti and there and Nishtha Rushi there, then Bhava Prema, there the intensity goes more higher, but still even from the beginning stage, the devotee starts thinking about Krishna, and hence and being constantly engaged in service of Krishna, he is considered to have ceased all material activities. Remember earlier Krishna says that whenever you offer everything to me, so there is no bondage. So devotee, from initially as well, he start offering things to Krishna, and hence he actually sees all his material activities, right? And let's see the 4th verse. Yes, we have 30. Yada hinendriyartheshu na karmashu anusajate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhasya tadochyate. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activity. So this basically is advanced level. So when he is completely advanced, so he has completely control on his mind, he has completely control on his senses, and now he doesn't have to do anything. He is completely aloof of all these things, and hence he renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So when a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself. And thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in any fruitive activities. Otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement, right? So that's how, without purification, if we give up the things, it's going to make havoc in our life, right? So just try to be in where we are and gradually elevate towards the destinations, right? Yes, again, Prabhupada says that one who has no such realization about realization of Krishna must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rungs of the yoga ladder. So work and then try to escape those things gradually, right? So that's fourth is basically don't perform anything until we have completely given up the desire for sense gratification. Then performing this Astanga Yoga might be a problem, or giving up things can be a problem, right? Rather than when we are advanced, when the yogis are advanced, they can give up Niskam Karma Yoga. Otherwise, still that they will be performing Niskam Karma Yoga. Okay, and let's see 5. So 5 and 6 are very, very important verse, right? So where it comes about the controlling the mind. So the mind is both a friend and mind is both the enemy. Okay, let's try to see how much we can cover. Verse 5. Uddhared atmana atmanam natmanam avasdet atmaneva hai atmano bandhur atmaiva ripur atmana. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind. So just imagine, how can someone deliver himself with mind? And one should not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So Krishna is saying here in this word that one should try. Uddharet means, one must deliver. One must deliver oneself. Why? By how? Atmana atmanam. So by the mind, we should deliver the conditioned soul, right? How it happens is very clearly, Krishna says the mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So with the mind, we should try to deliver our own self. It means what? When we engage our mind, when we think about how can we elevate towards things, the mind can help us. And in the mind is the one who can actually help us in degrading things. Means if we engage ourselves for something higher, we'll go towards higher. If we engage ourselves in some degraded activities, we'll degrade our own self. Basically, we'll not degrade our body, we are degrading our own soul, because body anyway is going to taken away. But next life, the soul is going to get degraded stage of the body, for the body, right? So one must try to deliver himself with the help of his mind, rather not to degrade himself. So we can only be the cause for our own elevation or degradation. And if we can make our mind as a friend, so as in this verse, Krishna is saying that the mind is a friend and his enemy as well. And even Krishna in verse 6 also say the same thing in a more profound way. So Prabhupada says that the Atma word can have different meanings depending upon different contexts. So the word Atma denotes sometimes the body, sometimes the mind, and sometimes the soul. So if you see the first word, this one, it says Atmana Atmanam. So what two Atmana. So one Atma is now referring to mind, another Atma is referring to the soul, or the conditioned soul. Right. And one is says Ripur. Ripur means basically it's enemy, and the Bandhur means friend. So Atma can become our friend, and Atma, the mind, can become our friend, and the mind can also become our enemy at the same time. Right. So that's how Prabhupada says this Atma word denotes body, mind, and soul depending upon different circumstances. Right. And since the mind is the center point for yoga practice, and Atma refers here to the mind. So mind needs to be controlled. And when we control the mind can become our friend. When we are it uncontrolled, it becomes enemy. So the mind, if controlled, is the best friend, and the mind uncontrolled becomes the worst enemy. Right. So I think it's there as well. So it says that mind, when absorbed in sense gratification, it becomes the cause of bondage, and the same mind, when absorbed in detached from sense gratification, it becomes the cause for liberation. Yeah. So I repeat the same thing just to make it more. So the mind, when absorbed in sense gratification or sense objects, it becomes the cause of bondage. Remember, we discussed earlier that when we are engaged ourselves in sense gratification, then we are bound in this mental cycle. So in a similar way, when the mind absorbed the sense objects, it becomes the cause of bondage. And the mind, when become detached from sense objects, it becomes the cause of liberation. So the mind acts as a both. It depends upon how well we interact our mind with the sense objects, the way we get the results. And hence Prabhupada says the one should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in the material existence. And the best way to disentangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. Right. And I think I missed one line here. Prabhupada says the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitters of material nature, and in this way the concerned soul may be saved. So we can only be the cause to save our own self, or we can only be the cause to degrade our own self. Right. Yes, I was searching for this one. This Prabhupada says from Amrita Bindu Upanishad, very nice. It says, for man, mind is the cause of bondage, and the mind is the cause of liberation. Right. The mind is the cause of bondage, and the mind is the cause of liberation. So mind absorbed in a sense object is the cause of bondage, and the mind detached from the sense object is cause of liberation. And therefore the mind should be controlled, and the mind should be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Right. So let's see. Yes, let's try to see 6 as well, because 5 and 6 both are interrelated. So I will try to cover it. So Bandhur Atmanat Atma Manastasya Eta Enat Enatmavet. Sorry. Bandhur Atmana Manastasya Yenatmevatmana Jitah Anatasmanastu Satrutve Vartetatmaeva Satrutvat. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Right. So that's what we discuss as well. The same context, Krishna says that the mind, once is controlled, it becomes the best of our friend, and if it's uncontrolled, or if someone's failed to control the mind remains the greatest enemy. And then the conclusion is basically we need to try to control the mind. And the purpose is the purpose of the practicing Eightfold Yoga is to control the mind in order to make it friend in discharging the human mission. The mission of the yogi is actually to see, to be in samadhi, to meditate completely on Krishna's form. So to do that, we have to control the mind. And unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga is simply a waste of time. Right. Yes. So this is the last paragraph. Prabhupada says the real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. So understanding that there is Krishna, there's Paramatma as Krishna, and then follow it. So if you see the Bhagavad Gita is already spoken by Krishna. So we need to follow what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita directly. So for one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lords follows automatically. See the nice words of Prabhupada's, that how can someone be in Krishna consciousness can actually follow everything, and because what we follow is what is being spoken by Krishna itself. And when we follow what's being spoken by Krishna, everything becomes perfect. Right. So I'll stop here, pause for a second. If anyone have any questions or thoughts, please let me know. We can discuss.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
So
Krishna.
I just want to clarify to just make sure I'm understanding it right. So to control our sense gratification, like controlling our mind, basically. So by, in the sense, if we are doing everything for Krishna, that we are devoted, is that, and do chanting. These are the only two ways. That's the gist of this, that says if you do these two, be devoted, do all activities to Krishna, for Krishna, and chant, that will help us to control our mind. Is that what I'm understanding right?
Yes, definitely that helps us, because this is the Krishna consciousness, right? To engage our activities in towards Krishna, to the pleasure of Krishna, and at the same time, chant his holy name. As we discussed yesterday, the chanting of holy name is one of the asset for Krishna consciousness, right? This is the most important one. Yes. So by engaging our activities, like I said, by offering food, right, bhoga to Krishna, and then honoring it, right, doing some kirtan at home, and trying to read some scriptures, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name. So in this way, we engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness, and that's how the process of Bhakti Yoga. In that way, we'll see that definitely, see, the mind is very flickering, right? It's becomes very difficult to control. So how to control the mind is engaging the mind in something good. So when we engage the mind, I was reading a quote a day before or here, when it says, yes, it was a couple of days maybe, yes, where it says that Prabhupada says, we all know it, the empty mind is the place for devils, right? So when we control the mind, when we engage the mind in Krishna service, that takes us towards perfection.
Okay. And what about, like, for example, our duties, that let's say we'll have to go to do our job, or for our a living, the job that we are doing. So can we say that also is for Krishna?
Yeah, definitely we can say that. See, the understanding is, as a family, we have family, and we all know that whatever we get, it's all because of mercy of Krishna.
Yeah.
And when we have that mood that actually Krishna has given us the responsibility to take care of my family, it's my duty to take care of them as a service to Krishna. So that becomes the consciousness. So earlier we are discussing about a non-devotee who just go for a walk, and a devotee who go for a walk. They work in the same office, they get the same salary. However, the one who is a devotee, who engages himself in maybe buying some Bhagavad Gita or distributing Bhagavad Gita and reading Bhagavad Gita, on the other hand, the same person getting the same salary, he's actually engaging himself in going to some bar and some other stops. So the money what we are getting It's because of Krishna's mercy, and we are engaging those money and take our families to the path of Krishna consciousness. So definitely that's the good way. And that's why Krishna is not asking Arjuna to give up his duty.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that gives a bit more clarity. Thank you so much. That's very good. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone have any other questions? Okay, so we can stop today here, and we'll resume on Monday, where we'll continue from verse number 7, and then go ahead. Let's see. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki,
Jai.
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 Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Have a happy weekend.
Thank
Happy
you.
weekend.